hope your week's been going well, and hopefully we're going to get some better weather today. And it's also good to see not only our members but relatives and friends from Manchester, Wembley, and Israel, just to name a few.
Who's from Wembley?
And so we've got a stellar lineup this morning, and we're going to be starting with Rabbi Black in a minute, but we've also got our very own Leigh Lewis, who's been looking at interesting and insightful and unusual items on the news to report on, and I'm going to be in conversation with Roy. So it's a great pleasure now to hand you over to Rabbi Black, who's going to give us a thought for the day.
Right, it's not going to be one thought, it's going to be a few.
Right, that's very good, Rabbi, thank you.
Keep it going, they say. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you. Hello, Roy. Lovely to see you here. And everybody else. Let me just get rid of that on my computer. Something pops up. So the founder of the Hasidic movement was a rabbi called Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael ben Eliezer. And he says that everything that happens in life, we should try to take a lesson for our everyday life. So therefore, something that becomes dominant in the news, we should take some type of message from that. And the news is still quite out there about the I can't read my writing. The West Ham, the French West Ham football player Kurt Zouma. And before you click off, because I've mentioned football, and for some people, you mention football, that's it. This talk is not about football, but how he has gotten himself into quite hot water. For those who haven't been up with the news, he was filmed by his brother, who put it out there on social media, hitting his cat and kicking her across the room. Last week, Zouma showed up at a game against Watford, and throughout the game, he was booed not only by the away supporters, but also from about everybody else in the stadium. In other words, his own supporters really booed him. There was a big storm. How could West Ham Football Club allow him to play? They asked. This was the question that was asked by everybody. Indeed, he ought to be suspended, yet he wasn't. But he was fined 2 weeks' pay, a mere £250,000, which is more than I've earned probably in my whole life, but that's another thing. And his 2 cats were taken away from him by the RSPCA. Of course, you could ask the question, which I think is a vital question, which is not really going to be the talk of this talk, which is going to be about, but why look to football players to be moral examples to our lives? I mean, that's a really big problem, isn't it? We shouldn't really be doing that, and it really shows where our society is going to. But I had a look at the video, and it really is a nasty piece of work. We have our own little cat, and her name is Cupcake. And it would never occur to anybody in our household to mistreat her in any way whatsoever. And I think the Torah has a lot to say about this. Let me just let somebody in. There we go. You've done it. Okay. Cruelty to animals is called Sa'ar Ba'alei Chayim. That means cruelty to animals. Right. In a number of places in the Torah, we are given instructions and mitzvot which are related to the treatment of animals. Let me illustrate just a few. And this is not exhaustive. Look at the Shema. Something we say every single day. And we talk about the brachot that Hashem will give us. And it says, and I will give the grass of the field for your animals. Then you shall eat and be satisfied. Note the order, which is underscored by rabbis. First, you feed your animals, and then you feed yourself. In that order. This is incorporated into halacha. In other words, animals come first in the pecking order when it comes to eating. Another law a negative prohibition, which it says in the Torah, Lo sacharosh b'shor uv'chamor yachdav. Do not plow an ox and a donkey together. Why? And the Sefer Chinuch gives a little bit of insight into this. It says because they would work at different speeds. It would be a simple case of tsa'ar ba'alei chayim, cruelty to animals if you were to you will make them plow together. In addition, we are instructed to send away the mother bird in order to take the eggs or the chicks. Once again, the Torah is talking about making sure we think carefully about our treatment of animals. Do not let a donkey fall under its burden. Help unload or load it. Do not slaughter a domestic animal, a mother and its child, on the same day. Indeed, even though the Torah permits the use of animals for food, the method has to be the most humane method to slaughter, which we call shechita. The Shulchan Aruch says that if the sakim, the knife which is employed in the shechita, has even the smallest nick, even the smallest blemish in it, it invalidates the shechita because it will cause needless pain to the animal. We need to be sensitive to the needs of the animals. It is recorded in Talmud Baba Batz, Baba Metzia 85a, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who was the prince at the time, the chief rabbi, I'll call him, or the redactor of the Mishnah, and this is what's recorded, that he suffered terrible disease during his life because he did not show sensitivity towards a particular animal. What he did, he caught an animal and running away, and he said, you were created to be slaughtered. And for that reason, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi suffered throughout his life. We see from all this how the Torah, the Gemara, the Talmud is so sensitive to how we treat animals. I've just like skimmed the surface of this. In addition, we are not allowed to hurt animals. We are also instructed to rest on the Shabbat day. You can't make an animal plow the field on the Shabbat. A number of our Rishonim give reasons for why we are commanded to be kind to our animals. Number one, because they are God's creatures, and we must respect all of Hashem's creations. And the Sefer Chinuch gives an interesting reason. If we show respect and kindness to animals, that would lead to respect to human beings. If you don't show respect to animals, conversely, then how do you wouldn't show respect to human beings as well. But people do not realize some of the first laws that were enacted by the Nazis, some of the first legislations in 1933 were in relation to the treatment of animals. It's quite interesting. If you were guilty of mistreatment of animals under Nazi law, you might be sent to concentration camps. Hilarious when you think, oh, it's not hilarious, it's really serious. You see the irony there. You know, if you were guilty of mistreatment of animals, you were sent to concentration camp. This is actually ensconced. Indeed, some of these Nazi laws regarding the humane treatment of animals are incorporated in German law today. That's where they get them from. It's quite interesting. I just thought that's interesting. Hitler loved his dogs. Indeed, he was a vegetarian. And Goering, he adored his 8-line cups. But it was all for a show. It was a PR stunt. Yet they, the Nazis, and Hitler at their head, ended up murdering millions of people. They treated as vermin, as Untermenschen, as subhuman beings. So my friends, yes, we must, according to the Torah law, be careful about the treatment and welfare of all animals. It doesn't need to be said. And if they need to be slaughtered for food, it goes without saying that it must be done in the most humane method. There was a famous medrash. It comes from Shemot Rabbah, which asks, which qualities did two of the greatest Jewish leaders, Moisha and David, possess to merit being chosen as leaders? It answers that they both were shepherds and demonstrated a special sensitivity to each and every one of their sheep. God said that if they can treat sheep in such a considerate fashion, they are worthy to be leaders of human beings. Thus, how these great men treated animals proved their worth as human beings and leaders of the Jewish people. Keep well. Have a good day.
Thank you very much indeed, Rabbi, for your thoughts on a very
I could see, I could see quite a few people having their breakfast whilst I was speaking. So I hope you had. I saw, I'm looking around. Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about that. Have a l'chaim. Good day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rabbi.
I have to go to work. So.
All right. Well,
that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
Have a good one. Keep well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye now. All the best. Well, now it's a great pleasure to introduce Leigh, who's going to have some insights into the news this week. Thank you, Leigh.
Good morning, everybody. I bring you this review from my nuclear bunker deep underground, somewhere in the home counties, because the world has gone absolutely mad. As the rabbi said, the news broke last week of a footballer earning 120 whatever it was, kicking a cat. And things haven't really improved much since then, because people's behavior, people's attitudes, you'd think in this time would be more togetherness, but it's not. But just to pick out some items that have been on the news. A place in the middle of the Indian Ocean called the Chagos Islands, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, probably have never heard of like me, but is actually a British-controlled island. But out of the blue, last week, Mauritius raised its flag on the island, claiming sovereignty over it. So there's going to be another little Falklands thing within the British Commonwealth, because I've got no idea what the Chagos Islands are going to do, or maybe the Mauritius people are worried of rising ocean levels because of global warming. I don't know. The next news that really broke was a reintroduction of another episode of the post office scandal. This is where postmasters in various post offices were not just sacked, but were criminalized because an accounting system had gone completely haywire, and yet the people in charge believed the accounting system and not the postmasters. Lives were absolutely ruined. Divorces, loss of earnings, loss of houses, families breaking up, the torments that it created. And it's come to light now. And the question is, these people hopefully will be taking legal action, and hopefully they will get justified damages and a recompense, because their lives have been made an absolute misery for 10 to 15 years. It's been an absolute disgrace. And how the people at the top of the post office are still there, I have no idea. They should be treated the same disgraceful way. Maybe the footballers should kick them. On the next subject, we now no longer have a country called Turkey. Turkey no longer exists. It is now called Turkey. It is spelt differently. It is T-Y-I-Y-E. This is because the President Erdogan wants to change the image. Something that's a Turkey is a load of rubbish. And so he wants to take the country name differently and take it into a new, promising, bright future by changing its name. It's a whole load of stuff on it. The spelling is different. All the adverts for holidaying in Turkey will be different. It's Turkey. It's done differently. I wish them luck with that one. As long as they maintain and improve their human rights record and give some more recognition to the Kurds, then maybe it'll be worth changing the name. Otherwise, they should really hide in shame. As Morris said before we started this about the skater, really is a good advert for youngsters going into sport, that you can now officially take drugs and not be excluded from the competition. This skater, this 15-year-old, who, having tested positive, has not been barred and is allowed to compete. And the reason is It might affect her psychologically if she was barred from the competition because she is only 15. Have I gone mad? Are they really just giving youngsters the excuse to allow people to take drugs and say, well, it's not our, we don't want to do them any harm? The drugs are doing them the harm, not the competition. So I have no idea. There shouldn't have been an Olympics anyway, but that's another thing. Of course, all these news items you would never have heard on the radio if you were if you actually had a Mazda car, because Mazdas have a technical problem where their radios cannot, in the car, cannot be retuned to tune into any radio stations. All you get is National Public Radio, and that's all you get, but it's not anything else. So you couldn't hear the Archers, or you couldn't hear Desert Island Discs. These things wouldn't exist if you own a Mazda car, because there is still a technical bug. Never mind, you can't win them all. Some guy who was rowing in the Thames the other day found a bone. He thought it was just a stick. It wasn't. It's a bone that was 5,000 years old. It's the old, which means it was built before the pyramids, before Stonehenge. It's quite an amazing find. He's going to donate it to the British London Museum, and so it will be on show. But it shows that when you go rowing, you're going to stir up some water. So anyway, on a lighter note, I'm sure we all remember the epic films from not too long ago of Lord of the Rings. Well, those of you who are fortunate enough to have Amazon Prime can look forward to, on Friday, September the 2nd, which is actually it is the eve of the 59th anniversary of my bar mitzvah. They are now showing Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. It's a TV show made by Amazon. It's a whole series which has cost $1 billion. It is the most expensive television series ever made. I don't know where they're making the stories up from, because it doesn't seem to come from the Silmarillion, which is actually the prequel to the prequel to the prequel of Lord of the Rings. So I don't know where they're making it up, but I'm sure it'll be like whatever that series was of Thrones, whatever it was called. I'm sure it'll be as dull as that, but never mind. Anyway, so that's on something to look forward to. I'm sure the Queen is dancing around Buckingham Palace this morning, either dancing around because she's overjoyed that Prince Andrew is no longer to be a problem for her, or maybe she's actually working out what jewellery she has to sell to raise the money to pay the lady off. But whatever it is, Prince Andrew, as far as, should be barred from the royal family. We should change the words to some of the royal family, not all of the royal family, because he has been an absolute disgrace. It is a shame it hasn't gone to court, but because it would have been, but it still hasn't finished, because there still might be some other people or cases that might mention him somewhere along the line. But of course, all of these things, whether they're funny or not, I haven't mentioned the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room obviously is Ukraine and what's happening there. The Russians are saying, but we're pulling back troops. There's no evidence of that. They've surrounded the Ukraine. They sit in Crimea and the eastern part. And having had half my grandparents, my father's side, came from the Ukraine, I do sort of have some strange affinity to it. I think what they're doing is, well, we know it's immoral, illegal, it's horrendous. But what bothers me most is that while the world, whether that's GCHQ and all the other intelligence sources, are focusing their resources on the Ukraine, on information gathering, of finding what's going on, I'm more bothered about the other nutcases that are around. What are North Korea doing at this time? What is China doing? But more importantly, what is Iran and ISIS doing? Well, the focus is not on them. What are they planning? God forbid they do something which would, and they're nutty enough to use nuclear weapons. So what are they doing? And we have to hope and pray that all the insanity that's going on does not cost us the end of the world, because the Ukraine is serious. I actually don't think that Russia would invade. I think it would be mad. But while the focus and attention and every effort diplomatically and militarily is focused on that area, what are the other nutcases doing around the world? And on a brighter note, the sun's shining. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you very much indeed, Leigh. We certainly did. Thank you very much indeed for bringing to our attention a fascinating and varied subject choice of news. I like the bit about Turkey. Maybe we'll also be calling it Kenton, perhaps. Thank you very much. It's very illuminating. Thank you so much.
Good.
Now, it's a great pleasure to introduce Roy, and we know Roy is our vice chairman, and we're looking forward to having a chat with Roy this morning. Well, to start with, Roy had a very auspicious start to his when he was born. So Roy, over to you.
Okay. Firstly, I'm happy to take questions at the end if anyone's still awake.
Lovely.
Yes, I got off to a good start. I was born on the 5th of June 1946, which was Chagos, but it was also Derby Day. And the winner of the Derby in 1946 was a horse called Airborne. And I was an heir being born, and my dad put a bet on, and he won probably about £3.10. And that was a good start. Out of interest, there were no betting shops in those days. You had to know someone to put a bet on, and someone that worked in an office somewhere. Betting shops were still 15 years away.
And that's a very auspicious start, I must say, Roy. But a tragedy struck quite early on, didn't it, as regards your parents? It was very, very sad.
I was born in Greenwich, and I lived with my mum and dad above a confectionery tobacconist shop. And my mum had sclerosis all her life. Not all her life, all the time that I knew her. And she was always wheelchair bound. Mm-hmm. And sadly, she died when I was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And sadly, even more sadly, a year after that, my father passed away when I was 11. So it wasn't the best start in life. I then went to live with my aunt and uncle, my Uncle Harry and Auntie Bess. My Uncle Harry was my mum's brother, and they took me in and treated me just like their own. They had two daughters, Sandra and Rochelle, and I was treated the same as them, and hopefully I reciprocated during my life. Sandra is still alive, thank God. Rochelle sadly passed away a few years ago. But their children look at me as their uncle, and our kids call Sandra and Rochelle Overshell, and refer to them as their aunt, and we're all just like brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and one big family.
That's marvellous. Yeah, that was so lucky in a way, Roy, for you.
Thank God. And unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the tragedy. No. When I was 15, unfortunately, my uncle passed away. My Uncle Harry died.
Yes.
So, not exactly a bed of roses for me. I was brought up by my aunt, who treated me just the same as she treated her children. She just treated me like a son. Yes. And I'd like to think that I reciprocated over the years. Mm-hmm. She was really an angel, and she was treating me just like a son. And thank God, believe it or not, things turned for the better, and she lived till she was 92.
Oh, marvellous. That's wonderful. Yeah. And you went to New Cross Shul, I understand.
Yes, I used to go to New Cross Shul, and South London was quite a vibrant area for Jewry in those days.
Was it a large community there then?
Yes, it was. There was what was called the new shul open just before my bar mitzvah, and I used to go 3 times a week to Cheder at New Cross Shul, and I was bar mitzvahed there.
Yes.
And really worked hard to learn my Maftir and Haftarah. And I can see you're laughing already. And before I could do my bar mitzvah in shul, I had to go and have a bar mitzvah test, and
Oh, yes.
I had a dread that if I didn't pass my test, I wouldn't be allowed to Leigh and to read my Haftarah. So off I go to Woburn House, and bag of nerves. First question, what's my Hebrew name? Well, that wasn't too much of a challenge.
No.
The second question, he asked me, am I a Cohen or a Levi? Well, unfortunately, I didn't know the difference. So I just said I'm a Levi. So on my bar mitzvah certificate, if anyone ever goes exploring in my loft, they'll see Reuven ben David Halevi.
Yeah.
So not really a Levi.
Oh, that's all right.
I've born and brought up in South London, and still think of myself as a South Londoner, in spite of not having lived in South London since 1969. Many people might recognise my accent as coming from South London. I was in a bagel shop in Bet Shemesh and in Israel. I was ordering my bagel, which used to be called bagels. They still had the hole in the middle. They call them bagel or bagel. Still had the same hole in the middle. Anyway, the person behind the counter says to me, "Do you come from South London?" So I said, "Yes. How do you know?" He said, "Well, I recognise your accent." I said, "Where do you come from?" He says, "Manchester."
That's good. I understand that you part of the Mendoza family, and it's a very big generations of Mendozas as well, and some very famous names in them.
Yeah, after my bar mitzvah, I never heard anything at all from my father's family.
Really, that's
until I reached age 60.
Well, really.
I had a phone call from a cousin who'd heard that I was having a party for my 60th birthday, and the call goes something like this. She says, "Hello, Roy, it's Jean here. I don't know if you remember me. I'm your cousin." So I said, "Yeah, I remember you." She says, "How are you?" I said, "Well, that's a funny thing to ask after not caring too much for the last 50 years. So I thought to myself, why do I want to talk to her? Then it dawns on me that I can find out about my family, because at this stage I didn't even know my paternal grandparents' name or where they were buried or anything. Anyway, she told me that they were buried in Marlow Road, and I asked her, because the blocks were famous for marrying out long before it became fashionable, and I asked her, was she interested in her Jewish life still? What did she do? Was she committed to being Jewish? What was her interest? Her reply was, she says, I like to get bagels from Gants Hill, and that was her Jewish commitment. But I thought I didn't really want to talk to her, but I thought perhaps I can find out more about my family. And it was at this stage I found out that my great-grandmother was a Mendoza, and subsequently found out that there is a family tree with 1,600 Mendozas in there, including plenty of blocks.
Yeah.
And I found out one of my ancestors was Daniel Mendoza, the famous bare knuckle fighter, and his son Isaac Mendoza, he was sent to Australia for 7 years. What did he do? His sin was stealing a handkerchief, and that cost him 7 years in Australia, probably never to come back. Also, in my family tree is Peter Sellers. He probably got his sense of humour from me.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
And also my own son-in-law, Andy DaCosta, is in there.
Oh, that's
And
interesting, yeah.
consequently, my grandsons are in there. So my grandsons and son-in-law double up as distant cousins.
Yeah. Now, I understand that some well-known members of our community were at school with you, weren't they?
I left school at 16, and
Yes.
among people living, went to school was Derek Lipson was in my year. He was the brainiest boy in the year.
Yes.
And Barry Hartog, who's recently left for the Rich Pastures,
Yes.
he was also at my school. I left school at 16 without too much success.
You didn't enjoy it very much then?
It was a difficult time. I wasn't really cut out for studying.
Yes.
Maybe reflecting what happened to me in my early life, which might be a good excuse. But after I left school, I decided that I needed to go to night school. So I was working in an insurance office, and if you want to get anywhere in insurance, you needed to have some exams for GCE.
Yes.
So I decided to go to night school to study, but that lasted about 3 weeks. So I wasn't cut out for study.
Wasn't so productive, no.
After that, I stayed in insurance till I was about 21, and went to work at Finlay's Tobacconists. I worked there behind the counter in a busy shop in Oxford Street, and I then worked my way to become under manager in a shop in Park Lane. And from there, I worked really hard, and I was asked to become an area manager, and I was eventually responsible for 40 shops in West End of London.
Oh, that's perfect.
I thought that I was worth a princely sum of £30 a week, so I asked for a rise, but the bosses thought otherwise. So I decided that was enough. Enough was enough. I wasn't worth £30 a week, so I was going to leave.
Yes. And where were you living at the time? Were you still living in South London?
No, after we got married,
yes,
we came to live in Carlton Avenue East off of Preston Road.
Did somebody recommend you to come over to there?
Well, I used to play football for a team.
Oh, I see.
Prestonians,
Yes.
which Adrian up there was one of my friends from the time. We played football together, and we've been friends ever since.
Oh, wonderful.
Since I was 17. But we moved to this area mainly because of moved to the area because of transport links.
Yes.
That was what attracted me. Didn't know what I was going to be doing business-wise, career-wise. So I thought it would be good to come and live here.
Yes.
Maris's late brother over Sherland, he lived in South Harrow, and we had a great time. He then moved to Kenton, and he was more than a brother-in-law. He was a great friend to me, and sadly he died when he was 42.
Oh,
He was a member of Kenton Shaw.
oh, so yes. Did you meet Maris, by the way, at the youth club, was it?
No, we met in at the Cash Door.
Oh, really?
A club in just next to Finchley Road Station, I think,
Yes.
on the corner of Campaign Gardens. After I'd finished working for Finlay's, I started my own business.
Yes.
In partnership with somebody called Alf Bird, who was
also a member, wasn't he?
He was a founder member of Kenton
Yeah, I
Shaw.
thought so, yeah.
And by coincidence, he was also Toastmaster at my bar mitzvah. So I started a business called Almost New Menswear in Leigh, and I stayed in that shop for the next 36 years. People would ask, what the business was buying and selling worn clothing, used clothing. People would say to me, where do you get the clothes from? So lots of different sources, but just to sum up the variety of people that I dealt with and how I got clothing. I used to deal with this man worked in the East End. He struggled to speak English, mainly speaking Yiddish.
Yes.
And he operated from this place where Morris will be aware of, off of Brick Lane. It was called Cheshire Street. And yeah, he's nodding, he knows it. When the place was recognisable, there was a sign outside saying condemned by the council, and that's where he worked.
Oh no.
And I would go in this place, and the only light were the gaps in the bricks. And I was desperate to use the toilet, so I asked him, is there a toilet here? He pointed out the back. He couldn't explain because of the lack of English. He pointed out the back, so out the back I go, and use the toilet, and I'm struggling to pull the chains, searching in the dark to pull the chain. Anyway, I managed to find a live electric wire.
Oh.
Pulled the live electric wire.
Oh my goodness.
And thankfully, as you notice, I survived.
Yes. Gosh, that must be a terrible shock.
It was very nicely put. At the other extreme where I got clothes from, I got a phone call one day from a customer who he was the security manager at the Ritz Hotel in Piccadilly. One of their customers had gone bankrupt, and he'd left a load of clothes in his suite. I couldn't call it a room, in his suite.
Yes.
This man, he was a songwriter, and he had permanent suites in the Ritz in Piccadilly, in Paris, and I think in Paris and in Rome. And the clothes that he had were like a treasure trove. There were Savile Row suits, there were handmade shirts, silk dressing gowns, crocodile shoes, the best of the best. So that's where I used to get clothing from, places like that.
That's very top of the range.
Exactly, yeah. I carried on doing this until supply was getting difficult to maintain.
Yes.
So I had the idea to change
direction, as it were.
Exactly. I started selling ends of ranges and factory seconds of good quality menswear, and I didn't quite know what to call the shop. So Maris and I were going on holiday for a few days to Budapest, and got chatting to this lady sitting next to me, And I explained to her what I did, and I said, I'm struggling to find a name. And she says, why not Designers for Less? So I thought, well, that sounded good. So I stayed as Designers for Less and started a new business. And that
And you
carried
took
on.
all your customers with you, didn't you? You had your regular clientele, as it were.
Yeah, there was one man in particular. He would come in. Now let's rewind a little bit. I was having some building work done at the shop, and the builder told me that this customer had told him to be wary of getting paid for your work. This is a Jewish shop.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So this man used to come in regularly. He would come in while he was having his takeaway lunch prepared, or if it was raining outside, or if it was hot in the summer, he would come in to take advantage of the air conditioning while he was waiting for his bus. So I thought of a way to exact revenge.
Yes.
And the best way that I could think of was to turn off the air conditioning whenever he came in. And that soon saw the end of that man.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah. So was that in Ealing where your shop was?
The shop was in West Ealing.
West Ealing, yes.
Yeah, and we stayed there, and until I finally closed the shop when the lease ran out. Rewinding a little bit.
Yes.
My personal life, Maris and I were married at New Cross Shore in 1969, and that was followed by a function we had at Tavistock Rooms in Charing Cross Road. We joined Kenton Shawl in 1970, but soon after we joined, we were founder members of Kenton Young Marrieds.
Oh, yeah, that was a very good group, I understand.
Yes, I still think of myself as a young married, and
you probably are comparison.
Still a few of us left in Shaw from those days. Kenton's community we've been proud to be part of, and we've done well, thank God, with our children.
Yes, you set up the security team, I understand, isn't it, with Harvey Sites, haven't you?
Set up the security team with Harvey Sites in 1986.
Yes.
Which I ran with him for 10 years. It was a difficult start.
Time, wasn't it?
The very first year, we had 3 overflows, one in the youth club, one in the main school, and one in the Sinai school. You know, come to Colnidra night, we'd got a phone call from the predecessors of the CST, which was the Board of Deputies. We got a phone call that there'd been a bomb found outside the shul in Barcelona.
Yes.
We shouldn't let anybody in the shul, or the school rather, until we'd searched it. So we searched the school and wouldn't let anybody in. And, the warden at the time of the shul, he says, "How comes nobody can come in? Not even the rabbi." So I said, probably it's more important that the rabbi shouldn't come in. And I was under intense pressure not to let anybody in, and I stood firm, and thankfully the school was searched, nothing was found, and the services can.
It must have been very worrying, really.
It's quite a responsibility.
Yes, that's right.
When we used to have to compile the rotas, which were done well before the Excel spreadsheets come along.
Yes, I can understand that by hand, probably.
Spreadsheets for things that you put on beds. to get people to cover events. There were no emails, so it involved multiple phone calls to get events covered. Everybody that worked for Kenton's security team had to do a 12-week training course at Woburn House, and sometimes were trained upstairs in the shul. I do recall Irene calling one night that she wanted her son Daniel to be part of the team.
Yes.
He was really keen. He was only 16 at the time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And people weren't allowed to, for insurance purposes, couldn't join before they were 17. So he was a steward, as it were, and we let him join in.
Oh, that was very good, isn't he? He graduated then.
Yeah, so he's gone on to bigger and better things since then.
Yeah.
We had an all-night vigil in the shul when the new wing was built.
Yes.
Not many people know that, so probably nobody knows that the shul was broken into on 2 Friday nights. So Lee Lewis has got thumbs up. He was part of the team.
Oh, that's right.
He was part of the all-night vigil.
Yes.
We became aware of what went on in Woodcock Park at nights.
Yes.
But no one showed up, and the shul was continued to be rebuilt, and everything went
Was all right then.
There was one. I used to do mobile security work as well, and
yes.
One of the highlights for me was that I was helping to cover an event where there was a gathering of rabbis, and I was stuck around the back.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Jackson came out, and he says, "How are you, Roy?" And I said, "I'm a bit bored." He says, "You should have been inside. It's much worse in there."
And then coming more recently, you took on got this idea of rejuvenating our community.
Yes, anybody that comes to shul will see how successful I've been in that.
Yes.
The numbers are flocking into our shul, as you'll see.
Yeah.
I invented the word rejuvenate, spelt with a J-E-W in the middle. I was struggling to find it in Wikipedia, the Oxford Dictionary, but
yes,
rejuvenate doesn't appear in there.
Yes, it is.
Thankfully, Rejuvenate has an enthusiastic bunch of people that help out with a wide variety of activities.
Yeah, so they're certainly very committed and have very varied, unusual events as well.
We've organised 2 Shabbatons away, which have been highly successful in High Wycombe, and the best of the best was our trip, which you came on to Strasbourg.
Yes, that was fantastic. Yeah,
and a few people on the call were there, and I called it Strasbourg because
yes, it was, wasn't it?
The night before we were due to depart, the British Airways decided to cancel the flight, and we spent the whole night trying to contact British Airways. Couldn't contact them. There was Maris on one phone, the Rabbi on one phone, myself on another phone, trying to get us another flight, which we managed to do the next day. And during our stay in Strasbourg, we were treated in a way that I can only describe as Jewish royalty.
Yes.
They treated us superbly, and the highlight was a concert, a choral concert that they put on solely for our benefit in a very old shul dating back to 1840 in Colmar.
Yes.
And the shul was packed out and it was a beautiful, beautiful sound. And it was so lovely that people that were passing by just came in. Nothing, they weren't Jewish, but they just loved the sound of the music.
Yes, it was.
After that, we were treated to what I can only call a sumptuous banquet in a hotel next door, and there was plenty to eat. We couldn't eat anymore. Plenty to drink, and it was a fabulous time. I want to tell you about our family.
Yes.
We're proud that we've got 3 lovely daughters, who between them have given us 14 grandchildren.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful.
Rain, our eldest, lives in Israel with 8 children.
Yes.
Deanne lives in Elstree with Nathan and Jake. Although Nathan's at university, Jake's soon to go. Gemma, our baby,
Yes.
born in 1980, still our baby.
Yes, of course.
Proud mum of 4 children.
Oh, wonderful.
And we are blessed and thrilled to have a great granddaughter.
Yes.
Called Ora, who's a delight. She was born Pesach nearly 2 years ago.
Yes. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you very much, Roy. We very much enjoyed having a chat with you. And perhaps finally, a guilty secret is, do you have one, Roy?
Well, last week we had Robert, who didn't have any, so I've got 2 guilty secrets.
Oh, okay.
The first one is to tell you about my hooligan past, maybe my hooligan current status. You'll find out. I'm a lifelong Charlton Athletic supporter, and I went to support Charlton at Portsmouth football ground.
Yes.
And being a teenage delinquent, I was threatened with eviction from the ground.
Oh, dear.
What did I do? Such a hooligan. I didn't get sent to Australia. What I did, I put balloons on the halfway line.
Oh, dear.
So that was the highlight of my teenage delinquency.
Oh.
And my other guilty secret, which some of you may know, on the 2nd of January 2022, so I'm still a hooligan, I bought some flowers for Maris for her birthday, and they came from Sainsbury's. Been a real romantic. I thought Sainsbury's was the best place.
Yes.
The flowers were guaranteed for 5 days.
Yes.
Anyway, after 2 days, the roses were dead. By the 3rd day, the petals and all the leaves were on the floor. No. So off I go to Sainsbury's with a receipt showing that the flowers were guaranteed. Anyway, went to the desk, explained what happened, expecting them to give me another bunch of flowers. Anyway, the girl says, "Have you got the barcode?" I said, how can I have a barcode? They've been in water for 3 days. She said, "Without the barcode, I can't do anything." So I said, "But is it reasonable? Something's guaranteed for 5 days, it only lasts 3, that something's not quite right." Anyway, "Without the barcode, I can't do anything," she says. Anyway, she calls over somebody else, tell her my story. Not such a difficult story, but tell her what happened. She says, "I can't do anything without the barcode." So with that, they called a duty manageress. The duty manageress, very authoritative, comes along. I explain my story for the 3rd time. She says, "I can't do anything without the barcode." So I said, "Do you think it reasonable that something guaranteed for 5 days only lasts 2 or 3? She's not listening. I'm telling her my story. I'm getting really frustrated and angry. So I didn't hit her, nothing like that. I got hold of the bag of flowers and dumped them on the floor, making a real mess in Sainsbury's. Anyway, she says, "You're banned from Sainsbury's."
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Well, I got banned from Sainsbury's, and the security guard came over. He said, "What's the matter?" So I explained, and the manager said, "Don't talk to him. He's banned. Get him out. Get him out." So off I went, and when I got home, I went through the rubbish bin, and it was freezing cold, 1 degree centigrade. Found this stupid barcode. So took a picture of the barcode, wrote a letter to Sainsbury's in Kenton, explaining what had happened and how frustrated and angry I was and what I'd done and that I was banned, and I didn't really think that was fair. Anyway, a couple of days later, I get a phone call from the manageress of Sainsbury's apologising, and what can we do to say sorry? So I said, all I want is a proper apology from you, and tell me how you're going to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So she says, "I'm awfully sorry. I'm really sorry. I'd like to offer you a gift voucher for £25. And she says, furthermore, when you come in, would you make yourself known to me, and I'll give you a bouquet of flowers as well." And I said, "Does that mean I'm banned list?" And yes, the ban has been removed, and I can now go in Sainsbury's, much to Maris's relief.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much indeed, Roy. Very much enjoyed hearing your life story and how you met Maris, and about your family, and then more recently about your guilty secrets. And we'll think twice when we go to Sainsbury's now. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Leigh.
Roy, you said you played for Prestonians.
That's right.
When? Because I used to play for Prestonians.
Oh, did
Oh,
you?
really? Well, my friend Adrian Lando up the top there, he also played, and I played when I was in 1963.
Early 60s.
To,
Early
probably
60s.
1970. I don't remember you.
No, I started playing for them in 71.
Oh, really?
No.
What colour shirts did you play in?
I was a goalkeeper. I always wore green.
Oh,
they wore blue shirts.
I see.
I played for them for 3 years.
Were they as successful then as we were? Because we used to have a
absolutely not. Absolutely not. They were awful. No, not quite.
Did you make some good saves, Leigh? Yeah.
There was one game that I'm sure that Adrian remembers. We lost 19-0.
Oh, really?
That was one of our better performances.
Oh, I remember
one of your better ones. Yeah.
No, we weren't that. I played in the second team. We weren't that bad. And I remember we did win a game 16. We won a game 16.
What colour, do you remember what colour shirts you played? The rest of the team.
The second team used to play in blue.
Yeah, well, before that, we used to have green shirts.
Green.
Oh,
played in green, and they were short sleeve shirts, and not like the pansies today that play in long sleeve shirts and gloves. And
gloves, that's right.
We played in short sleeve shirts, snow, ice, rain, come what may.
Well, we played in
size 32. They're all one size 32 chest, and obviously one or two of the guys were a little bit bigger than that, so it did look a bit strange.
Oh yeah.
I just want to say something about. May. It's the nature of the. Oh wow. No, I just want to say something about Roy. The nature of the man is that you can see what he's like, how he perseveres relentlessly until he gets what he wants, and that's the nature of the man, and he's solid through and through, a wonderful person. I've known him a long time now. I always found him, one of the most sensational people I've ever met, you know. Amazing.
I agree with
that. Very nice.
I've known Roy from the security days, and he's one of the best guys I've ever met.
Yes.
My friend Adrian is the best liar that I know.
Can we ask a question, please, from Israel?
Yes, go ahead.
We want to know, in all the years that you were doing security, Saba, were you, I know you did a lot of preventative work. Was there ever a real alert or a real anti-Semite that came, or a real attack that you had to close the door, or is it all preventative?
No, there was an incident, two incidents that come to mind. One incident was, might have been an incident, I don't know, but somebody came to the shul on Yontif, a visitor, not speaking English, wanted to come in, and I didn't know what to do, so I thought the best thing to do was to get her to read the Shema from the Siddur to establish if she was Jewish or not.
Yes.
She didn't speak any English. Didn't seem a threat, but she didn't speak English. So I didn't know who she was. So I asked her to read the Shema, in which case I would know if she was Jewish or not. She decided to not to come in, not to try and read. So I don't know. It could have been an incident.
Yes.
Maybe yes, maybe not.
Yeah.
The other incident that comes to mind was that.
Harvey.
Oh yeah, there's two incidents. Yeah, two incidents. One was a bag found outside the youth club on Simchas Torah, which nobody knew what it was for. So we evacuated the area, not the shul, but evacuated the area, called the police, and it was someone's lunch bag that had been left behind.
Oh, no.
But there was an incident. There was an incident. One Friday night, I got a phone call, and it was already Chagos, and it was from Harvey, and he'd been shot with an air gun while walking to shul on Friday
Oh my
night.
goodness.
Oh my gosh.
He'd been hit with an air pellet, and he was walking with Darren to shul, and Darren was really fit and strong and CST trained. Anyway, he chased after the person that fired the air gun at him, slapped him back to shul, laid him out on the ground in front of the shul, and held him there till the police came.
Wow.
That's an incident. That's a real incident. That's a real incident.
Yeah.
And as you're such a perseverer, did you ever go back and get the free bunch of flowers from Sainsbury's?
Of course. What would you expect?
You would never let me down, Dad. Never. Thank you, Dad. Very interesting.
Can I just say it's our gorgeous daughter with our gorgeous great-granddaughter.
She's lovely, isn't she? Yes. Hello. Good to see you.
Okay. Thank you, Dad.
All
right. Saba wants you to wave. Can you wave?
Laura.
Wave at Saba and Safta. She's a bit shy, I'm afraid.
A bit shy, yeah. Oh.
A bit confused. Oh, she's waving now. She's waving.
Oh,
hello. Okay.
Oh, sweet.
Anyway, thank you for the entertainment. Really enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Right. We've got any more questions from Ron?
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good to see you. Okay. Any more questions for Ryan before we finish off this morning?
Okay, there's something else I want to tell you before I go.
Go on then, Roy.
A stressful situation happened to me in June 2020. I had arranged for superstar cousin Shulam Lema to do a Zoom for Kabbalat Shabbat for us. And he's not only a superstar cousin, he behaves like a superstar rock star. On a Thursday night, immediately before Shabbat, about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I get an email from him saying that you didn't get approval from me for the leaflet you've put out. And furthermore, he says, I always get paid for my appearances beforehand. And not only that, he says, I'm not sure I can make it tomorrow night anyway.
Oh, no.
So this was less than 24 hours before. The United Synagogue had changed their plans for Kabbalat Shabbat that they do for the whole of the US, and they put, I think it was Rabbi Mason from Muswell Hill, they moved him to a different night to accommodate our superstar.
Yes.
And stress made my hair go the colour it is.
Yeah.
And United Synagogue managed to placate him with the money
Oh,
and also with the leaflet, but we still weren't to know for sure whether he was going to get there.
no.
The Kabbalah service had started. Rabbi Black was speaking. We still didn't know if he was going to get there on time. And a message came through that he was 5 minutes away. Rabbi elongated his sermon, which is not too difficult for a rabbi. And Shulam Lemma turned up just in time. Superb evening. And today on YouTube, that video on YouTube has had 4,500 hits.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
that's enough for me for the
it was really, yeah. Well, thank you very much once again, Roy, and it's good to see everybody on the call this morning. Thank you very much to Leigh. Very much enjoyed your reviewing the news. Thank you too to our technical director Morris, of course, and wishing everybody enjoyable day. Thank you very much.
Big thank you to you, Rochelle.
All the best now.
Big thank you to you, Rochelle, and superb, Roy. That was
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye. All the best.
normal.